As someone who's never been the biggest Nintendo person, the perpetual hype around the Switch 2 has always kind of confused me. Like, I totally understand liking Nintendo games, 100% get that, but I just never understood the rabidness surrounding the Switch era of Nintendo, and the fact that the Switch 2 rumors spread across the internet almost as quickly as the Bloodborne PC rumors spread has always just kind of puzzled me, but to each their own, I guess. Granted, I've grown to be somewhat biased against Nintendo in recent years, I'll admit, because I'm not only someone who really likes competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee, and Nintendo has done their damnedest to rip my organs out for liking Melee in the current year, but I'm also someone who very much enjoys emulation and mods, which Nintendo has also done their damnedest to grind me into the dirt for in recent years, so you'll forgive me for not really having much hustle to play the latest version of Elf Boy and Magic Girl, but I digress. But over the last few days, I've been sent an article from several viewers because, frankly, it's a garbage article. Nintendo fanboys, and specifically Nintendo fanboys who are game journalists, have this really bad habit of just brushing over all the objectively lame things that Nintendo does in favor of talking about things that Nintendo might do in the future, and 99% of the time it's things they never end up doing anyways. But this article we're going to read together is perhaps the most obvious example of this I've seen in a long time. The article comes from a site called Fandom Wire, and I've frankly never heard of this site, and the article is called Nintendo's emulator crackdown may be because Switch 2 is coming with a feature that makes it superior to PS6 and next-gen Xbox. Could the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 feature built-in mod support, giving players the ability to create, modify, and share content?
This doesn't make any sense!
Alright, well then, just say whatever you want.
So, right out of the gate, we can see the angle that we're going to be taking here. We're going to be excusing Nintendo's recent amping up of their crackdown on emulation and mods because this complete crayon head at Fandom Wire actually thinks Nintendo, of all companies, is going to release what is essentially an open source console. Like, that's actually the angle you're taking here? The company that puts tons of money into legal fees for attacking emulation and ROM sites that preserve the games that Nintendo themselves has no interest in preserving themselves. The company that openly and publicly attacks other developers for trying to make a game that appeals to an audience that Nintendo themselves pushed away. The company that will use legal force against you if you show modded gameplay on YouTube. Don't worry, guys, they're doing all this because the Switch 2 is gonna have mod support. Nintendo is going to release a console with mod support. This should be a fun read. Quote, Nintendo has recently made waves with the announcement that its upcoming console, likely the Switch 2, will be backwards compatible with their previous console. This revelation has sparked excitement among fans who are eager to continue playing their favorite titles from the Switch and older systems. It also provided an important clue about why the company has recently intensified its legal actions against emulator companies and piracy. Yeah, guys, the Switch 2 being backwards compatible with the Switch 1 is totally the reason why Nintendo is going out of their way to strike you back to the Stone Age for trying to enjoy GameCube and Wii U games. That's totally the reason this is happening. And how depressing it is that we now live in an era where backwards compatibility is some kind of gracious addition to a new console with some kind of underlying motivation behind it, instead of it just being, an expected feature for new hardware like it used to be on Nintendo consoles. Like, the Switch was the first Nintendo console since, the GameCube to not have backwards compatibility with anything, so maybe you should stop giving Nintendo so much leeway? But I digress. Quote, these crackdowns also lead to another speculation that the company is gearing up for something bigger with the Switch 2. What if the new console could introduce built-in mod support as a core feature? This would be a bold move as it gives players the ability to create, modify, and share their own content directly on the system. Given the company's history of innovation, it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. Yeah, do you know how mods actually work? Do you actually understand how mods work? Also, you really think Nintendo, the kings of curation, would just give you free reign over an entire system and let you freely distribute those alterations across the entire Nintendo ecosystem? You actually think that has even a 1% chance of happening? After they crack down on everyone and anyone they possibly can for doing this exact thing? And I love this last bit here. that you somehow believe that because of this company's history with innovation, that makes this completely unbelievable thing believable? Like, yeah, guys, Nintendo made some interesting consoles, and that completely overrules their history of openly shitting down the throats of anyone who doesn't play exactly by their rules. You either play exactly by Nintendo's rules, or Nintendo rips your throat out. But also, here's the Switch 2, where there are no rules. I cannot hammer home how stupid this premise is. Nintendo Switch could feature modding capabilities. Nintendo has always been vigilant about protecting its intellectual property, often going to great lengths to prevent unauthorized distribution of its games. However, the recent increase in legal action feels different. It isn't just about stopping piracy, it feels like it's about sending a message that the company is preparing for something much bigger. Yeah, guys, the company is steadfast in protecting the portrayal of its intellectual property, so naturally, they're gonna make their next console capable of completely changing the portrayal of its intellectual property. How many amiibos are in your ass right now? The announcement that the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible is likely one of the key reasons behind this increased crackdown. Backward compatibility opens the door to preserving older titles from previous consoles in a way that just feels natural. But it feels like this is just one piece of the puzzle. What if the company is planning something even more groundbreaking for its upcoming handheld? Okay, but the crackdown wasn't just on Switch emulators. You're being so obtuse about this, and it's really annoying. Nintendo's been cracking down on everything involving the emulation or modding of their previous games. It's not just the Switch generation. The Switch generation is the one that gets the most media coverage because there are still people out there who are absolutely gobsmacked that Switch emulation is possible for some reason. And obviously the Switch is the most relevant Nintendo generation right now, so of course it's the most obvious one that people are going to talk about. But Nintendo has been cracking down on basically everything regardless of generation. What you're suggesting here is that Nintendo is doing all of this because their next console is going to be capable of playing all the games that are being emulated, and that's why they're shutting down all the emulation, which suggests that the Switch 2 is not only going to be backwards compatible with the Switch 1, but it's also going to be backwards compatible with every Nintendo console, and it's also going to feature ways to acquire every game ever released on those Nintendo consoles, which we all know is not happening. It is plainly not happening. I will eat my entire house if that's what's happening. Hello, I'm interrupting this video to remind you that this channel is sponsored by 4D Gaming. If you would like a really nice mousepad, go to 4dgaming.com and use code Joe for a discount. This channel is also sponsored by Glitch Energy. It's basically G Fuel, but better, so go to Glitch Energy and use code Joe for a discount. Thank you for letting me interrupt your content. I'll let you keep watching it now. What if, in addition to backward compatibility, the Switch 2 includes native modding support? This could allow players to modify existing games or even create entirely new content from scratch. This could be done through a built-in modding framework that lets users tweak, adjust, and share gameplay experiences with others. Do you know how mods work? Like, a built-in modding framework on a console? That's not mods. That's just creation tools and maybe a debug menu. That's basically just putting Dreams or like Super Mario Maker into the operating system. That's not mods. Like, yeah, shocker, the Nintendo fanboy journalist doesn't actually know what words mean, but still, you wrote a whole ass article about how Nintendo's behavior is excusable because of mod support. But then you describe what you mean by mod support, and it's not actually mod support. It's just Super Mario Maker on a larger scale, which, yeah, I admit would be pretty cool. I'm not denying that what you are describing would be pretty cool, but also Nintendo would never do this because not only is it completely out of character for them, but it's also a logistical nightmare. The only way that what you're describing would actually work is if every game released on the Switch 2 was compatible with this Nintendo console-hosted creation tool, which would mean every single game released on the console would have to somehow also get all of its assets and code up to snuff with this creation tool, which means coordinating with all these developers and publishers and getting them to be okay with their games being opened up like this, and like at the end of the day, this is way harder than just modding the game, ironically. What you're proposing here for the Switch 2 is a Nintendo branded and Nintendo curated modding system, which is not only a complete logistical nightmare and not actually modding, but it will also pale in comparison to what actual mods can do to these games. And you also seem to think that all of this could be hosted on a Switch 2 and a Switch 2 alone, with no additional input from, like, I don't know, a computer? I'm not convinced you actually know what modding is. Like, I think you just saw that Nintendo is taking legal action against emulators and mods, and you were like, yeah, well, what if all the stuff they're trying to shut down is available on the Switch too, without actually having any understanding of the logistics of what they're shutting down. And yet someone presumably paid you to write this. This is shit. But let's continue. With the rumored performance, this kind of modding capability seems very plausible. What the fuck does performance have to do with modding capabilities? The original Switch was a great step forward for portable gaming, but the new console with this native modding feature would unlock new possibilities for both game developers and the fan community. Yeah, it would be a great step forward if it's actually what was going on, but if you have eyeballs, you know it's not what's going on, you dingbat. Games like Skyrim or Minecraft on PC have shown that allowing modding breathes new life into games and can even keep them massively popular years after their initial release. If the company decides to integrate modding capabilities natively into the Switch 2, it would provide a level of flexibility and creativity that other consoles with their more closed ecosystems simply cannot match. Bro, Nintendo has the most closed ecosystem of all the consoles. You really think that Nintendo is just going to 180 that with a new system? Like, even if it were logistically possible, you really think they would choose to do this? You're stupid. Why Nintendo would choose to embrace modding? Nintendo has never been a company to shy away from innovation and has historically embraced user creativity to some extent. Titles like Super Mario Maker and Animal Crossing New Horizons have showcased how the company allows players to design and share content, but within the boundaries of its games. Yeah, wasn't Super Mario Maker criticized for having pretty restrictive creation tools? But also, regardless, once again, you don't seem to understand the difference between a creation tool and a mod. They're not the same. With the Switch 2, it has the unique opportunity to take this a step further, opening the doors to full-on system-wide modding capabilities. The built-in mod support could be a direct response to the growing demand for customizable gaming experiences that allow players to shape their own content and play how they want to. Tell me you know nothing about how modding actually works without telling me. Like, you keep saying mod support, without showing that you have any idea of what that actually means. Like, you just, okay, we're almost done. Let's wrap this up. While it's still speculative, you don't say, it's speculative? No way. The idea that the Switch 2 could feature built-in mod support is an exciting one. Additionally, this would not only make emulation mostly irrelevant, but also transform the handheld into a console that truly empowers its community, offering a level of flexibility and creativity never before seen in a mainstream gaming platform. In the end, whether or not the speculation becomes true is still uncertain, but one thing is clear: the release of the Switch 2 will likely change the gaming industry, especially the ongoing console war. This article is riddled with typos, by the way, in case you haven't been looking at the screenshots while I've been reading these. There are so many basic typos in this article. But okay, that's your closing point. And so just to be clear, you think mod support in the Switch 2 would make emulation irrelevant. You think mod support would make emulation irrelevant. Do you think modding and emulation are the same thing? You fucking moron. But that's ultimately what this is about, right? That point there, that's ultimately what this article was for. Nintendo shutting down emulation and going after modders is all justified to you because the Switch 2 is going to make emulation irrelevant. Nintendo will fix all of your problems, guys, so just shut up and put their penis in your mouth. That's really what this is about. You have no idea what modding actually is. You don't seem to know what the difference between modding and emulation is. You don't seem to know what the purpose of emulation is. But Nintendo doesn't like modding or emulation, so you have to spin the situation into one that makes Nintendo the good guys. You have to defend Nintendo at all costs, even if you have no idea what you're talking about. Also, believe it or not, there's already a gaming platform with this level of openness and that empowers the gamer to this degree. It's called a PC. If Nintendo actually wanted to empower gamers like this, like if that actually was their mission statement with their hardware, they would be making PCs, but I don't see them doing that, and they don't have to do that. It doesn't have to be their mission statement. But if it's not their mission statement, stop acting like it all of a sudden is. The Switch 2 is just going to be another Nintendo console. It'll be backwards compatible with the Switch 1, it'll probably have some kind of digital storefront with older Nintendo games being sold at way too high a price, and, as usual, Nintendo will sue you 6 ways to Sunday if you try to mod the platform in any way or emulate the software in any way. Because that's what they do. That's what they've proven themselves to do. If you feel the need to twist the truth this hard to defend their behavior, maybe you just shouldn't be defending their behavior. Toodles.